Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Commentary is Magic's live stream on today, Sunday, October 22nd, 2017. I am, as always, Grandpaws.
I'm Emperor Bugle.
Big Cheese.
The somewhat in distress Cat.
And Living Silver.
And we are here for the second week in a row doing something a little new on behalf of our patrons. So thank you to those whose names we will display at the end. Last week, we had Cursed Chords give his discussion on the topic of flexibility. What are we doing this week?
Deck lists.
Yeah, taking a look at some decks.
We're doing deck checks. We've got to make sure their lists match with their actual cards, and we give them game losses if they don't.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Especially if they don't have any ducks.
Right. Duck lists. Deck duck. Now, we actually have two deck lists that have been submitted by two of our separate patrons. And they are two decks that definitely have different styles of play, different strategies going on. Our first was submitted by Cursed Chords, and our second was submitted by Sonnet Scroll. Both of whom are very active players. And I think they've given us a lot to think about and an interesting challenge in a couple of places. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. A bit.
So, with that being said, just before we get into the first one to discuss here, as a reminder, the ability to submit deck lists for public review is something that many of our patrons do gain access to. In fact, they'll have the ability to do it once each month, which is very cool because I always personally like seeing what kind of neat things the community can put out. Mm-hmm. And when we have asked them to, we'll get into it when we go ahead. Cheese, why don't you get us into the first one?
All right. So our first submission was from Cursed Chords. And bringing that up here. This was what was the name of this one again?
Moon Cakes, I believe.
Moon Cakes, yes. There it is. All right. And the focus here was on a control deck based around or on the foundation of so now go Moon 1000 years live by Vanish Time. And but also to bring farming into the mix. The principal card being Ember.
So what exactly does Ember do for a farming deck?
Gives it power. It's an alternative to what is her name? Wow, Carbo Loader. And it also allows you to both defend and attack your troublemakers.
She attack, but she also protect?
Yes. She gets a bit jealous of other people going after them.
It's not like she wanted to go after them or anything, Baka.
Exactly. So now you'll note that there's a few cards in the current meta that like to dismiss friends. And so Orange has an answer to that in Appaloosa. But Ember by herself is only 3 power, not the 4, so there's a few tools in here designed to bring her up to 4 to protect her for the long term.
And we see that he's been choosing to run Burst of Strength and Highly Motivated in order to do that.
Yeah. Also got a suite of 11 epics, and also retaining a lot of the control elements of so now go Moon with Pirate Jack and Lemon Pie, and then, Bailout Popping Corn, Clipped Wings, lots of tools.
All right.
So we took a look at this, and there were a few problems we noticed. One of the major ones was getting into blue. So you'll note here that the only way into blue here is infiltrating the hive. And a single
single
copy.
copy.
Yes. Oh, and a single copy of Seabreeze's Flower.
which gets you into yellow, not blue.
Sorry, I was seeing that as the other card. Wow, a singing barrel. They look so similar to me. I don't know why I messed that up. But yeah, so it has a single way into blue. And that's great if you don't get it taken away on turn 2 and you go second. Even then, you're not going to be able to play out your Ember that turn.
Turn 1, Angel Wings into Stiffs and Snails. You no longer have blue.
Or just, yeah, I mean, that's a turn 1. And even going against like Hot Wings, which can hit the 6.
It can. It's harder, but it can.
Yeah.
Now, though the deck is capable of getting a 2-power blue token into play on turn 1, so that Hot Wings would need the absolute god hand to cause a turn 1 DFO, which I'm not even sure it can reliably do with the list we have right now. The bigger issue is it's also a token. And that means that even if you use your first turn to spend your 2 action tokens, put yourself out of AT, and pitch
not
2 cards from
flip
your hand.
Luna.
Right. And not flip Luna to get your friend into play. If your opponent has any kind of Frighten, they've just drained you of 2 AT and 2 cards from your hand and effectively time locked you. They've effectively gotten an extra turn.
I hear those Hot Wings decks like to play Rutherford to sometimes DFO early.
Yeah.
I have seen those once or twice, yes.
Seems painful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for decks that are running greedy entry. This
This is a bit greedy.
this is a little greedy.
There's greedy, and then there's Scrooge McDuck.
Right.
Yeah. So some of the other problems was that you'll note a lot of these cards have really high costs to play, especially the ones that you want to get out early.
Yeah, I'd like to get an Ember out. I'd like to get Appaloosa out. Limestone would be a great one to shut off opposing control effects and things like that, but I don't have that much AT.
You don't start the game with 10 AT?
Only in that one chaos rule
Yeah.
thing, and then you just play Mod Mac combo.
And you only have 10 AT.
Right. Yeah, that is also a problem. Apart from that, there are a few other things to consider as well. The Troublemaker selection here worked very well for So Now Go Moon, because you were mostly sitting there trying to control. And so Troublemakers like Chrono Trigger worked well for disrupting opposing event-based control decks because, well, their events are just gone. And especially in an environment where there's a lot of recursion going on, you really don't want those hitting the discard pile, or not staying there anyway. However, this also gets rid of one of the best control Troublemakers that So Now Go Moon had, which was Changeling Mimics. And Changeling Mimics also provided this deck with a means of confronting behind its Troublemakers. And that is perhaps the biggest obstacle to overcome in my mind is when you try to farm with a deck like So Now Go Moon, and you choose only epics, it means that your only method of reliable point gain is actually destroying your best control tool, which is Troublemaker Walls. So Now Go Moon was never designed to be a farming deck. It was designed to be a hard control deck in a color that isn't commonly associated with hard control. At least not on its own. And so when you remove your ability to confront problems, and you take your Troublemakers, which are your most efficient tool of locking down the opponent, since you've got a lot of protection normally through things like Cargo Loader and then your events like Bailout and Applejack's Epiphany, and you say, well, now I have to beat these up, it becomes much more difficult. Now, I believe that Curse had said that he wanted this deck, when it was finished and revised, to be semi-competitive. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Semi-competitive.
And that's good, because I think Ember is definitely a semi-competitive card. She hasn't really found a place in top-tier competitive Harmony yet, but there's a lot that she can bring to a lot of various different decks.
Yeah, I think the home she's looking for that she just hasn't found yet is a blue control deck, a blue troublemaker control deck. Because, like she said before, she can behave a little bit like a cargo loader and just protect your troublemakers.
Right. If we had an easy method of getting, say, Rainbow Dash Wonderbolt flipped reliably, it might allow such a deck to become more popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you know here that the highly motivated and burst of strength is there almost entirely just to boost up Ember, so she is both protected and provides a lot more power.
Right. That's
Yeah.
actually the funny thing is they're serving dual purpose in allowing it to turn on Appaloosa for her, which is the key thing that Cursed One had done, and also just making it more and more likely that you will win your Troublemaker face-offs, which is a nice synergy. Bugle, you had a comment?
I did, but I don't remember what it is anymore, so I'm just going to assume you guys covered it.
If you remember, bring it up.
All right. So do you want to start talking about some of the changes we would suggest?
Sure. So what would you do, Cheese?
Well, so the most important part of this deck is Ember. And the only way to defend it currently is Appaloosa. So one of the things we decided would be to actually change the main to Spike.
What?
Yeah, the one that you haven't seen since Dragon Express.
Hey!
Oh, okay. Haven't seen much of. So so his wording is you put counters on him to flip when you play cards, and then you can turn him face. When he's flipped, you can turn him back to his start side to prevent a dismissal of a friend.
Or a resource.
Or a resource, yes. And like we have some resources and some friends that we care about. So, and the main reason for that is that the benefit you're getting in a hybrid deck from Dream Guide isn't extremely high versus the protection that you need for Ember. And it also deals with the play requirements, the entry, by also switching to a single copy of Trading Traditions as the starting problem. And once you do this, it also opens you up to playing some of the multicolor cards. And to deal with the high cost, we decided to throw in Wonderbolt Stadium. And to deal with to help even more with entry is what is her name? I can't actually see the name right here.
Orchard Blossom?
Orchard Blossom, yes. Is Orchard Blossom. And she also helps the farming strategy in that if you do get pushed back, it's just one to move her up because she's swift.
She's also already at the 4 power to be protected by Appaloosa.
Yeah.
And since you're looking to beat up your troublemakers, there's a chance that you'll be actually causing problem face-offs as well, since both problems won't be permanently locked down, which means that her dismissal, or I'm sorry, not dismissal, random discard effect might actually end up triggering here and serve as a good stand-in for the fact that we end up losing Luna in the early game. Maybe.
We've heard worse plans.
And
Like-
so...
Yeah, like just having a single card for your entry.
Trading Traditions is a good single card for your entry, but
I mean,
still
if
not
you're
a good
gonna have,
plan.
if you're gonna have one card for your entry, it should probably be Trading Traditions.
I mean,
But
yeah. And so we also do throw in 3 Singing Barrels to help with entry. So
Sorry, go ahead.
we took out a lot of stuff here. Or sorry, we added a lot of stuff here. What got taken out to make room for it? Well, we decided to take out the bursts of strength, the highly motivated, ever vigilant, and so there was a troublemaker change, and cutting down on some of the other cards.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you have a deck that is attempting to do two things at once, it does mean that some sacrifices are going to have to be made. So this particular edited version that we have is not going to be as effective at controlling the board 100% of the time as So Now Go Moon was. But it is going to be in a better position to beat up some of its own troublemakers for point acceleration, rapid point acceleration, which is something So Now Go Moon did not have. It was a slog fest if you tried to get to 15.
So let's cut out to a potential version that we came up with.
Sure, let's see what we've got.
Yeah. So here's the changes that we came up with. One of the other the change in the troublemaker was getting rid of Starlight and replacing it with Lord Tyrek.
Now, why is Tyrek good here?
Why is Tyrek good? Well, Tyrek is good because Appaloosa protects our friends from Tyrek. So it hurts the opponent. So does
Spike.
Yeah, and so does Spike. So it hurts the opponent while hurting us less. A lot less.
Sure. We have so many resources and events that we rely on to control the game that having those banished by Starlight Glimmer Chrono Trigger, even if we could somehow protect her until she popped, just means they're gone forever. I think we saw a game early on in top 16 at Gen Con this year where multiple copies, or no, it wasn't Gen Con, it was BronyCan. Aura, I think that was you playing it, when you had multiple copies of Appaloosa banished by Chrono Trigger.
Oh, was that it, BronyCan, perhaps?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
BronyCan.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous move. So switching over to Tyrek gives us another 2-point troublemaker that we can farm just as easily, that actually provides a bit of hard removal for an opponent's friend if they so choose to challenge that way, and doesn't really affect us as much. What else did we do?
This does have less or fewer ways to boost the power of Ember. It has Brotherly Love and Zap Apples. And Zap Apples is temporary. But you still do have Spike.
Right. Having a main that allows us to have that extra clutch protection from dismissal is pretty good. And Cursed, it's actually only 4 cards to flip Spike. All the other ones are 5, but Spike only requires 4. The optimal opening, in my mind, would be to go Wonderbolt Stadium into Orchard Blossom just to get that blue on the field, and
some troublemakers.
Yeah. It's not so much about flipping Spike early. You really just want to make sure you can try to get some entry down. And landing a Wonderbolt Stadium early on means that you're going to help offset the high AT cost of a lot of these other friends. By including 3 copies of Singing Barrel in the deck, not only do you have entry as well, but you also have a single card that you can play 4 times in a single turn if you absolutely have to flip Spike again.
This is true.
Yep.
When you absolutely must flip Spike now.
Singing Barrel was also my way of flipping pink Discord, if needed.
Yep, to play a card multiple times.
Yep.
Brotherly Love is also kind of nice because there's a chance we might not even need to play it. We could just rely on its chaos effect to get Ember up to 4 power. So even though there's only 3 copies of power boosting cards in here, there's technically 5 if you look at the fact that Brotherly Love could also work if it ends up flipped.
Well, there's
Yeah.
also the Zap Apples.
I'm counting the Zap Apples. There's only 2 Brotherly Loves.
Oh, there's
and 1
only 2
Zap Apples.
Brotherly? Oh, my bad.
Most of the rest is the same, just at slightly reduced values. Limestone Pie goes down to 1. Applejack Captain of the Seven Seas definitely goes down here since we're relying on Ember so much we don't want to wipe our board. Smooths goes down to 1. But most of the other tools are relatively similar. And you'll see the problem deck is almost exactly the same with that one change.
Yeah, it got rid of one. What was that?
We got rid of Jailbreak.
Oh yes, got rid of the jailbreak for a Trading Traditions.
But overall, we feel like these changes might allow better access to Ember, more frequent protection for her, and a better setup to break through your own troublemakers. It's not going to be cheap, either AT-wise or monetary-wise, but you can do it.
Besides, who doesn't like having an ultra rare main, huh?
Exactly.
I like having ultra rare mains. It's the whole reason to play Hot Wings.
Exactly.
Yeah, the only reason.
Well, now you can play this.
Yes, you can.
Spike Wings. No.
Spike wings. I mean, there are some wings.
Dragon wings,
just- they're
except
just
Spike
clipped.
doesn't have wings.
Well, neither does Rainbow Dash, according to its deck.
Spike has
I got
little
it, I got it.
ear thingies.
Dragon Express.
That's a great name.
There you go. Well, shall we look at our second Patron's deck submission?
Sure.
Yeah, we got 2. We might as well look at 2.
Bugle, why don't you tell us a little bit about this one?
All right, so let's see. This was submitted to us by Sonnet Scroll, and what did she name it? She named it Night Class, and it is a mono purple control deck using as you would guess from the name, using Professor Sparkle, and also using Princess Luna Holiday Spirit. The general goal is just the troublemaker mono purple control. So that's what we're focusing on here.
Now, were there particular cards that she thought were key to the deck or she really wanted to focus on?
Well, she absolutely wanted to focus on the holiday spirits, and she 100% wanted to make sure it stayed mono purple, and she really liked the Luna's Future plus Smooth's Troublemaker interaction. For those who aren't familiar with that combo, Luna's Future can put up to, well, exactly 3 +1 power counters on Smooths, and when Smooths is defeated, you can remove a +1 power counter instead, meaning he doesn't get defeated, meaning they don't get points, and they also can't confront that problem because there's still a Troublemaker in the way. It's a fun little combo.
Yeah, we've seen a couple multicolor control decks using this. I believe Cruel Mistress
Yes.
heavily relied on this strategy.
Cruel Mistress was the first deck I saw break into the competitive scene using that, but I know as soon as Luna's Future was spoiled, that was one of the things that jumped to a lot of people's minds.
Sure. And reuse of the Smooths has been a commonly discussed tactic with things like Monstrous Manual as well.
Yes. This is a bit easier.
Yes,
but
it is.
less costly.
Well, more power counters for the same AT cost.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
You get more. Well, You'd have to pay for the manual and then also use the manual. So
That's true. That's true.
but anyway, so we've got some standard tools here. We've got our paper twilights, we've got gyros, we've got study sessions, we've got mimics. We mentioned that before, but was absent from the farming deck because you can't farm them usually. No alicorn amulets here.
Nope. No pipsqueaks either.
A few slightly more unusual tools. We've got Truffle. He's actually pretty common with Professor Twilight because he helps you flip her. We've got a full playset of Heart's Desires, and we have Frozen and Magicite instead of the typically preferred interdimensional portal. Though this deck doesn't have much reason to portal its own friends, so it's an understandable substitution. You get that chaos effect, and you can hit mains with it.
Yeah, about the only thing you'd really want to portal in here would be Zakora for her eccentric.
Right. Yeah.
Or gyro
Maybe.
if you need it.
No, portaling gyro
Gyro's
doesn't
on
help
play.
you. But maybe you could portal Starlight if you really wanted to cutie mark her again. That's expensive, but if you need a troublemaker right now, there you go.
I mean, 4AT, get
Yeah.
a troublemaker. So, when you looked at this, what thoughts came to mind as to how it could be improved? Because I believe that Sonnet said she wanted this to be as competitive as possible, correct?
Yes, she marked. She said she wanted this to be a fully competitive deck, if at all possible. So, the first thing that came to my mind was we only have 6 ways to flip Professor Sparkle, and on top of that, she's got a slightly unreliable flip condition, especially for a control deck. You typically don't want to be spending 4 AT to confront a problem before you can even start setting up your board. It's slightly less ideal, especially with if she's trying to make this as competitive as possible. As you mentioned before, there are a lot of aggro decks right now that can just get rid of a starting problem before you can do anything about it. Or maybe you're going up against another control deck and they're just going to play some troublemakers. Now you can't confront any problems. So flipping Twilight here is a bit of an issue simply because of our flip condition. In addition to the fact that we only have 6 entry cards right now, there's also the issue that while Luna is a focus card, she is very expensive and she doesn't always do a lot. If your opponent doesn't challenge troublemakers in this deck, she is a 4 cost 3 power friend, and that's it. Maybe prepared if they actually start a face off, but you shouldn't let them do that, right?
I mean, ideally not.
The next issue I noticed was we actually have way too much resource removal. Now, we've always said you should have resource removal, right? That is like rule number 3.
Probably not 5.
But probably not 5, yes.
I mean, if you're going up against Cursed's deck, you might want 5 copies of resource removal. There are a lot of resources in that deck.
Okay, sure.
But
some of them really don't want to go away.
right, and Spike can't stop banishment. He can only stop dismissal.
Yes.
That being said, I do have to say, and Bugle, I'm sure you remember this from our featured match of Ag Studies versus Scootaloo Orange. I will never, ever again run Mysterious Disappearance in a deck where I have resources that I want to keep around.
It's chaos.
Never. It will not happen. Simply because the liability is so high. If your opponent is not running resources and you have a study session in play and it's the only thing that's holding back that aggro deck from being able to break through and confront problems, dilemmas that they drop down, and your opponent chooses to challenge one of your troublemakers just to see what happens, and you lose that study session in the process, the momentum shift is tremendous and almost unrecoverable.
Mm-hmm. The only way that I agree with you. The only way that I would run Mysterious Disappearance in the same deck as Study Session is if I had a reliable way to stack my deck,
Yep.
like Doctor
Yeah.
Who's or something,
I agree.
because then you can drastically minimize the chance of that. Whoops. Here you could, however, hit a Heart's Desire instead, but that's still not a great
That's
consolation
still
prize.
terrible.
So yeah, a bit too much resource removal. Now you might argue that Luna's Future is in here to just boost your troublemakers, right? You could make that argument. However, the most of the time where you're trying to boost your troublemakers, you probably aren't worrying too much about your opponent's resources, and vice versa. If you care about their resources, you probably don't care too much about boosting your troublemakers.
Sure. We think about what sort of decks might end up playing resources that we would want to get rid of, and those could be things like farming decks that are going to have the power to punch through these troublemakers regardless of if they're 3 power or 6 power, and can just play epics instead if they'd prefer. We think about control decks where, okay, well, you're in the control lock, you're not challenging my troublemakers anyway, so...
Why are you making them bigger? Yeah.
Right.
So I think in this case, it is perfectly fine to just look at them like a song with multiple modes and treat them as a removal or a troublemaker buff as necessary. Let's see. We also saw, whoops, wrong page. Right, Heart's Desire. Speaking of Heart's Desire, I love Heart's Desire. I have a very, very fond experience with Heart's Desire.
You don't say.
It is one of my favorite ultra rares in the game, and it does not belong in this deck at all. It for 2 AT, it can get you 4 AT, right? But only if you win a face-off. And right now, you're basically the only face-offs you want to get in are the ones that your opponent is starting a troublemaker face-off. And if you have 2 Heart's Desires in play and a Princess Luna,
Like
they're not going to start that face-off unless they are 100% sure they're going to win.
Right.
So you're just paid 2 AT for a resource that is sitting there and doing nothing.
To kind of expand on that, Leo, we always give you a lot of grief over your love of the worst main in the game.
Yes.
But
Cadence.
Right, exactly. But the thing that makes Cadence bad is the same thing that makes Heart's Desire bad in this deck. Your opponent basically has full control over whether or not that's going to end up working.
Yep.
This deck does not have incredibly high-powered friends. And I actually mean power as in their numerical value. And many of its problems are very difficult to confront. Especially like Traitor, and Friend or Foe, which you simply cannot confront because you don't have any non-purple characters.
100% impossible to confront.
Because of that, you're not going to be sitting there reliably starting problem face-offs, and your troublemakers aren't epic, so you also can't challenge them. You have no magic duels, so you have no showdowns in the deck, and you have no friends that start face-offs otherwise. So if your opponent chooses not to challenge your troublemakers, Heart's Desire just cost you 2 AT to basically take up a extra play space on the table.
To be a mysterious disappearance instead of your study session.
I mean, it does make the deck big pimpin', which is nice.
Yes.
And that there is a lot to be said for that, especially if you're running the Starlight promos as well. But unfortunately, it is just a little bit too greedy in terms of AT.
We already have plenty of perfectly serviceable AT generators as well. Most of which will generate as much as, if not more than, Heart's Desire.
Sure.
Paper Twilight, you will easily get that 4 AT worth of value. Truffle, you can usually get 4 AT out of him. Sakura is a bit harder, but she does so much more, like with that eccentric 3.
Eccentric.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, we know some things we'd like to try to fix with this. What do we suggest?
Oh, I did have one last thing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
This is technically breaking the spirit of being mono purple. Very, very technically. But as a control deck, I have a rule. Whatever control deck you're using, whatever color combination you're using, whatever strategy you're using, run 2 copies of Blackmail. Blackmail, like, because as control, your goal is to stop the opponent from scoring points by whatever means. And Blackmail basically says, if you stop your opponent from scoring points, you score points. So
which is that thing that you generally want to do as a control deck.
Right. Yes. So since you're already in that space, and you're already perfectly willing to run problems that you can't confront, right? In traitor and friend or foe.
Sure.
So Blackmail is again technically breaking the spirit. So
I believe we did end up actually trading one unconfrontable problem for another in this case.
Yes, yep, that is exactly what we did. Yeah. So those were the primary issues that we had identified. So how do we fix it? Are we
Well, do we want to just go to the list so we can talk about some of this?
Yeah, well, let's just go to the list. So the first thing you might notice right off the bat, that's a different Twilight. I mean,
she's facing the other direction.
Yes, and she's she hasn't gotten her teacher's degree yet, teaching degree.
Not yet.
She's working on it.
We've changed each of the mains in these decks.
Yes.
But it's been for a good reason, right?
Right. Yes. Now, while Professor Sparkle is good at protecting your troublemakers and winning, you had plenty of ways in this deck to already do that. Especially when you're doing stuff like Luna onto Smooths, right? Like, you don't need to protect that anymore. That's already super protected, right? Even if they win, they didn't win. So we decided to give a main with a little bit more flexibility and easier to flip. You don't need to rely on confronting a problem. Now, it's still a problem that we did change the starting problem, and it is still a problem that the opponent can get rid of. But we have other ways to flip our main. We have Aloysius, and if we don't get to play Aloysius, we still have the 3 Starlights and the Truffles, which can let us play Paper Twilight, or newly added what's her name? Sunset Shimmer. Yes, and the 2 copies of Star Sword Research. So we actually have plenty of ways to flip our main.
Yep.
Even if the starting problem goes away.
Even if the starting problem goes away.
So I noticed the Troublemaker suite remained the same.
Yes, we kept the Trollmakers about the same. There's possibly an argument to switch Squizzard for Arm Osby, but they're similar enough that it's fine. You just need to make sure when you play it that the opponent isn't going to immediately play another Troublemaker, because chances are it'll be an epic and then whoops, it's gone.
Yep. Study Session, of course, is a great control tool, so that was definitely kept in.
Yep, we kept that. We added another Snapcakes. Snapcakes is just super good in this meta. And since you don't have a way to recur them in mono purple, well, we could have added Spike, but we didn't. So we just added that third Snapcakes. We also added I mentioned Sunset a little earlier, but she's here not just for the amazing Meticulous 2, which is fantastic, but also because she helps with removal. Mono purple isn't particularly great at removal, and Glimmer makes it not only harder to win, but you can put anything on top of their deck, and now that card's gone. They flipped it. Granted, you flipped Sunset too, but oh well.
I mean, unless you play a Star Sword Research afterwards.
Or unless you play Star Sword Research afterwards, yeah.
There's also the odd possibility of just using Sunset after you've flipped your cards to temporarily get rid of an opposing friend.
Yes, sometimes you just need to temporarily do it. Yeah.
Zecora, of course, is great, though she is going to end up being a target for removal, so that is just something to keep in mind.
Speaking of our high-profile friends, we actually reduced the number of holiday spirits to 2. The reason for that is because she's very expensive, and again, if the opponent isn't actually challenging troublemakers, you're not going to be scoring points off of her. If they do challenge, then you do, but you don't want to be playing her. You don't want to be playing a lot of her and then getting no benefit, right?
Right. Princess Luna is this deck's equivalent of photo finish, in that
Right.
it is your method of point acceleration to help you compensate for the fact that you aren't going to be as aggressive as your opponent is. And if you look at control decks that are running cards like photo finish, or I suppose we can say Changeling Throne as well, you're not running 3 copies of that card, because you want to save your resources, your cards, and your action tokens to be able to maintain your controlling board state.
Yes. Yeah. These don't help you with your controlling. They just help you finish the game. And especially since we added more meticulous to this deck, and whatever you want to call ancient research, it's also going to be easier to find her, even at only 2 copies. So 2 copies seemed better here.
Yep. And then, of course, the removal of Mysterious Disappearance, which we had discussed the reasoning of before.
Yes.
But apart from that, everything else remained the same.
I guess we took out 1 magical misfire. Yeah.
Sure. That,
some
quantities.
Yes.
Quantities changed, but the cards remained.
The problem deck changed. The blackmails and the ancient researches, but otherwise it's basically the same.
Right. I think that Sonnet selected many of the right control tools that were here. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot that was missing as far as that's a purple deck. Why are you not playing this card? You've got Napcakes as your effectively hard removal for low power friends, Frozen in Magicite to deal with farming decks, and then you've got Starlight Glimmer to be able to get your troublemakers into play face up and boost their power as well, which is actually very, very nice. I believe we cut 1 truffle, but we left Starlight right where she is, not just for the ability to put a troublemaker into play face up, but also because this deck's flip average is not great.
No, it's not.
It's not terrible, but it's not great. And because of that, getting that extra 2 power on all your troublemakers is really quite nice.
Yeah.
And
noticed,
Starlight
Glimmer as well is a nice boost for the Squizzard. Because the Squizzard's ability, the Squizzard is weakened when you play it first before flipping, and she can drop it straight into play.
That's true.
Which does help that card a little bit.
Yes, this is actually very true.
Yeah, running Starlight and Squizzard over Aranospi, I think, is probably fine.
Yes.
Now, even though we tweaked this and made some changes and attempted to make it as competitive as possible, I think it is at least worth mentioning the opportunity costs of playing a monocolor deck. And that is very much like Cursed was talking about last week. You do lose a lot of flexibility. You'll hear terms like color pie, which is not referring to Pinkie Pie most of the time.
It's Rainbow Dashes and Pinkie Pie's love child.
Please, no.
Don't even start.
Where each color in the game has certain things that are uniquely it, or at least primarily restricted to that particular section of the color pie. And purple is in a difficult position because it doesn't have a lot of hard removal. We are running the best options that I think purple has for hard removal in Clever Calculator and Napcakes, but it does mean you don't have banishment. You don't have a lot of forced discard. You don't have dismissal. There's a lot of things that you don't necessarily have access to. And there are also multicolor synergies that you could find between these two. For example, if you wanted to be sure that you always had the AT to play your Holiday Spirits, you could end up splashing into orange with a deck like this to be able to run Applejack Factory Organizer, and also be able to run Princess Twilight Sparkle Time Patrol from Marks in Time, which gives your Troublemakers Diligent 2, and that can synergize with the Smooths even more.
Man, that is so mean.
It's kind of fun. But, of course, the opportunity cost you take to playing a multicolor deck is, if you get locked out of your entry, you're in a lot of trouble if you're relying on that secondary color.
Yeah.
So going monocolor can be advantageous in that manner. You know, we look at what happened with the original Bluna aggro decks back in the day, and you just ran mono blue. You just forced it and just kind of shoved your way in there. And because you didn't have to worry about playing a secondary color, there was a lot you were capable of doing. Yeah, and having that consistency, Sonnet, of being able to run more copies of the same cards because you don't have to worry about taking up card slots to get into your secondary colors, is definitely something we will be discussing next week when we are talking about the power of consistency.
Yeah, so thank you for the segue.
You're welcome.
Well,
That's,
I was thanking Sonnet.
That doesn't mean grandpas can't say you're welcome anyway.
I guess that's true.
I mean, what can I say except you're welcome?
You can make a meta
That's
point
a
about
different
saying you're welcome.
No answers for you. No one is allowed to need answers anymore.
I like
No.
answers, though.
You're welcome anyway.
You're go-
Yep. So those are a couple attempts at just revising a few of these lists. I think each of the ideas was fundamentally very interesting and worth exploring. And I would be curious to hear from each of our patrons who we featured their decks here today as to what success they might find in their local areas playing. And of course, if any of our viewers would like to give these decks a try, I'm sure that Cursed and Sonnet wouldn't mind too much. Or if they would, they can yell out about it in chat right now.
So one minor problem we have with the two decks is they both provided names that kind of relied on the main. So
Yeah.
now these decks don't have names. So
Sorry.
whoops.
It gives them a chance to rename it. Or they could keep it for posterity if they'd like.
Yeah.
So with that, I believe that does cover our two deck list submissions for this week. But there have been a few other things that we could discuss as well, right?
Someone say spoilers? Spoilers?
Spoilers? I heard spoilers.
Spoilers.
Game state?
Track day? Tires?
What?
Warner tires?
Mine.
Teacup.
Anyway,
Up.
we want to look at some spoilers, maybe.
Yeah, let's go to some spoilers. We had two of them this week, and there was a lot of discussion on these cards.
Oh, yes, there was.
A bit.
Octavia.
It's Octi.
Tavi.
Octi.
Tavi.
Octi. Chat,
I guess you guys will just
chat,
have to be
vote
wrong.
now. Team Octi or Team Tabby?
Tav.
See, she has
You bunch of uncouth ruffians. Her name is Octavia. Not Tavi, not Octi. Octavia.
Does she have a second part of her name?
Yes,
He doesn't-
Octavia Melody.
She doesn't have 8 arms.
No, but she does have. She has 4 limbs, 2 ears, and then two little things sticking out of the bow tie.
Oh,
Sure.
totally.
Sure, I'll buy that.
Something or other, her instrument has 4 strings.
Okay. So let's look at Octavia here. Octavia, Harmony, and Dissonance is a 3/3/3/3. That's 3 cost, 3 purple rec, 3 white rec, 3 purple and white power. Earth Pony, friend with Meticulous 1. And only the second time we've seen this kind of effect in the game. As an opponent plays an event, you may pay 2 action tokens and exhaust this card to cancel that card.
So let's talk about as.
Sure, because this is something that can be a little confusing. As is a timing that exists on a few select cards in this game.
I believe there are 7 right now, and Octavia makes 8.
That may be correct, although some of them are going to be as enters play, and others are going to be as something is played. And those are also 2 different timings. The important thing to know is that as interrupts the process of a card being played, but it does not change the priority cycle. So there's nothing you can do in response to as, nor is it a trigger on its own. Triggered abilities use when, whenever, or at, and as does not use this. It simply interrupts the normal process of a card either entering play or a card being played. So that being said, what does canceling mean?
Well,
It's
that's easier. That's a lot easier.
If you say it's a 3-cost blue spell that counters a spell, Leo, is that what you were going to say?
Do I have to
I
pay 2
was gonna
life for
say
it?
actually something about getting a plane ride to visit your mother-in-law and then canceling.
Ah, okay.
But the thought was was counter spells in blue.
Well, in Magic, damn it, sorry. Yeah,
The other
in
games.
ponies, it is actually, yes, it is stopping a card from resolving.
Specifically, events. Those are the only cards that we can currently cancel.
Yes, right now.
Right now.
I think the game actually allows us to cancel other things. In theory, we just don't have any cards that can do it.
I believe the rules framework is there, but canceling a friend just seems
Wrong.
Seems
Cool.
mean.
Yeah, it's a little brutal.
I mean, to be fair, the season 5 finale was canceling friends, right?
I mean, technically. So let's talk about this effect then. The previous card that we've seen was Wake Up Call, which was a resource that required you to pay 1 and retire it, and that would cancel the event. This is a friend that requires you to pay 2, so it does require you to pay 1 more, but you only have to exhaust the card instead of retiring it. It does cost more to play initially, though, and it is in 2 colors.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Wake Up Call does cost you 1 to play it. In addition.
Right, like I said, this does cost you more to play it,
Yeah.
because this costs you 3 to get it into play and then 2 to activate it.
Yes. So if you're going to, if you intend to cancel more than one thing, Octavia is a bit better value.
Is she good enough value to see play, though? Bugle, I think you and I have similar thoughts on this. I'd like to hear from some of the other members as well, though. Leo, what do you think?
On the playability of this card.
Yes.
Yeah. My initial thought, I mean, with any 3-cost card, is it's that borderline just the right price of expensiveness where it's not an automatic, yes, we play this. If we're going to play this, it better have a good effect to justify that cost. The Meticulous does help to justify it. The repeatability, I think especially if you are playing against decks that are event heavy, the repeatability in my opinion, would justify the 3 AT cost. The 2 AT per instance of canceling events is more what I'm concerned with. It's the same price as a wake-up call, but then, as we've argued before, wake-up call is not necessarily the most cost-effective card to begin with. So I think it's on par with it. I'm kind of on the fence of whether the very expensive cost is worth it. I think in a meta overran by pink dismissal, particularly when you're trying to protect some expensive cards from belly flop, that probably would push me over the edge into saying, yes, we do want this in play.
Okay.
This is debatable. Because I don't see a whole lot of decks running around going purple white as like primary colors that they want in their startup. It's more something that I'd think a control deck would maybe pack a 2 of, and once they're online, use this to cement their position.
I think this is
It is interesting
insanely
that
expensive.
she technically comes with built-in protection for herself. If you've
Sort
got
of.
the AT to do it.
That
If
is a
you're-
5 AT turn.
It is a 5 AT turn, but it is in probably the highest AT generating color in the game.
Yeah, I don't think I would play her unless I was intending to keep AT open.
Right, I agree. This is not a card that you drop because you've got 3 AT and hey, Meticulous 1 is nice. This is a card you drop because, hey, I've now had several turns to build up my AT, and I've got a board state that's developing here, and I want to protect it.
Yeah.
And to that end, I agree with Leo in that this is very much like Photo Finish, and honestly very much like Wake Up Call. Not a card that I would want to run a full playset of, but one that I would consider including 1, maybe 2 copies of.
Yeah, I like her a lot as a one of.
Yep.
And the reason I would run her as a one of, or rather that I would prefer her over Wake Up Call, is probably not the reason most people are expecting.
Which is?
Her wreck.
Yep.
3/3. As
Better than
counterintuitive
4.
as it is,
Is
3/3
much
is
easier to
to
get
meet than 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. 4 basically mandates that you are playing white as your primary color, and if you're playing white as your primary color, that means you're losing a lot of AT generation. If you're playing purple as a primary color and you've got a Singing Barrel or some other such effect to get you into white, you can do it just with your main with no other board state if you really need to do.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like 3 off color has found itself in an interesting position in the Equestrian Odyssey's block. It's much easier to get 3 off color than it was beforehand.
Oh, for sure.
And so I would, yeah, I far prefer her over Wake Up Call. And I actually expect, we saw people dabbling with Wake Up Call to mixed results. I think we'll see more Octavias.
Yeah, I would place Octavia at a solid 3.
Yeah. Some decks are going to want her, some decks just aren't.
Especially the color combination. I think this is green oiled rich, and I need to protect it
Well,
up until the point where it's time to start flickering it in and out.
I might just let Spoiled Rich go and reanimate her later, but sure.
Well, so speaking of, with canceling, I think a very, very important thing to remind people of is the lack of targeting in ponies. So, in some games, such as Magic, when you play a spell, most spells have a target, and you must announce targets when you play the spell. This is not true with ponies. Let's say you play Food Fight, right? And let's say there's Octavias in play, and also, let's say, I don't know, a TSUV, right? When you play Food Fight, you just say, I am playing Food Fight. If the opponent asks you, are you targeting Octavia or Twilight? You do not have to answer until they have decided whether or not they're going to cancel. Sorry. Obviously, when this card resolves, you have to say what you are food fighting. But when there is the opportunity the opponent is going to cancel, you do not need to say.
Right. To specifically go down the timing in the comprehensive rules of taking an action, here are the steps up until the point where Octavia or Wake Up Call would take effect. You would announce the action and reveal its source if the source is not public, i.e. it's an event in your hand. You would determine the costs of the action, and you would check that any color requirements are met. You would pay any costs associated with that action. And if the action is a card being played, like an event, you put that card into the queue zone. At that point, effects which happen as a player plays a card resolve before you move past that step. And once you move past that as step, then you get into following the instructions of the card, ability, or action in order. So, just like Beagle was saying, you don't have to tell your opponent anything when you're playing an event if they've got this effect out there until they decide whether or not they're canceling it.
Right. And if they decide they are canceling it, you don't need to tell them anything at all because it didn't happen.
Yep.
This is very important for cards like the Epiphanies and Songs because, they might want to cancel one of the modes of that song, but not another mode. So they might ask you, which mode are you playing?
And you will say, don't spend 2 AT and you'll find out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I think that's enough on Octavia. Shall we go to our other fellow musician for this week?
Sure. I just wanted to bring up one minor bit of trivia. Octavia is, I believe, the first character in the game to have as timing on 2 different cards.
That's true. She's also got Harsh Judge.
Yep.
Well, I mean, there's timing counting this now, so that's not exactly fair.
DJ Pondry.
We do have another spoiler.
The beat.
Hey, it's DJ or Vinyl. Chat, argue now. DJ or Vinyl?
Yes.
I don't know. It kind of says
believe
in the title.
What's it called? Twitter, when revealing Vinyl or DJ, said you can't have a My Little Pony card game set with Octavia and not also have Vinyl. Right?
Premiere never
You
existed.
can.
Premiere never existed. That was not a set.
It's a myth.
No TSUVs, no Nightmare Moons. It's fine.
Ara, walk us through this one if you would, please. Tell us what we're looking at here as far as DJ Pony Feel the Beat.
What we're looking at here is a pony hiding behind her DJ console. No, just kidding. When you move a friend, you may pay 1 AT less for your next friend's turn to a minimum of 1.
How important is that last part of the phrase?
Hey, Bugle.
Yes.
Tell me, what happens when things get free?
Fun times.
Fun times. So let's go with yes, very important.
Okay. So the floor is important on this.
The floor is in fact important on this card. We know what happens when we reduce the cost of things to 0, and then you have a broken combo deck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not going to let that one happen. And note that this is when you move a friend, not one of your friends. So yes, as chat's sitting there, hey, let's play a TSUV. Move 2 things, play it for 1, repeat.
Yeah,
Silly.
you can totally do that. It's real fun. It will not work if you just... Had you not seen that?
I did not actually see that. That is interesting.
Purple pink control making a wait.
Making a comeback? Wait.
Making a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback.
Can't call it a comeback if it's already here.
Since when have Vinyl and TSUV ever worked together?
Right now.
Yeah.
And also forever. Just with the main.
Pretty much.
Never.
Anyway, when you move a friend, you may pay 1 AT less. So there's lots of ways to move friend, and especially with the Traveler mechanic that we've already seen revealed in this set. Moving things seems like it's going to get kind of popular
becoming as popular as popular can be.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yeah, there's
So
some
I'm pretty-
movement in the set.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people already saw the combo with the other pink friend we have revealed.
Oh yeah,
That's
Mortimer.
yeah, that almost reads get put a +1 counter on this and also reduce the cost of your next friend this turn.
Right. If it's
Sometimes, yeah,
right. If
for
it's
free.
Sounds good.
SGTM.
I expect some pre-releases to get that combo and just have fun with that combo.
Sure, they're both common, I believe.
Yes, they are both common.
They are.
All we need is belly flop and berry punch and orange swirl now, and we're in business. Please no.
Cripes.
Please
Please,
no.
please no.
So, some other fun things. Winged Wonder.
Yeah, Winged Wonder is a good one. Can synergize with Calling the Dream Cavalry as well.
I was about to say, yeah, hey, let's move 4 things and then play something that costs 5 for free. But we
There
move-
might
You mean for one?
yeah,
one.
yeah.
there might be some interesting things that you could do with Thunderlane. There might be some interesting things that you could do with Lightning Dust, I believe, and any form of token generation. That might actually be a little silly.
Oh my.
So yeah, it's real important that this card has a floor.
No, not important at all.
But
One other interesting thing that I think some people are going to forget at the pre-release. This says when you move a friend,
right,
not a character.
that is correct. There is a reason that it does not say character. Because I hear there's a main that kind of likes moving a lot.
Scootaloo?
As Scootaloo moves a lot, but her timing isn't great because you'd lose the modifier from this immediately.
Rainbow Dash?
Rainbow Dash likes moving, but not necessarily as much.
Would this be a main that happens to move for free?
It might be a main that would happen to move for free.
When you do something like play a friend?
A friend who might have its cost reduced if you've already moved anything.
Huh. Can't see a problem with that.
Nope, seems good.
And no clue what you're talking about. That's just...
I'm pretty sure you have to actually pay AT to move Hanging Out.
Yeah, Baluna would be pretty strong with this card. So this is likely not going to end up being a Hot Wing style card where you're going for the most aggressive aggro plays. First off, because it costs 3 AT. 3 AT is really difficult to justify in a deck, an aggressive deck that likes to be playing cards from its hand. However, there are some other things that you can do with it, and I think my favorite so far is Ara's suggestion of the TSUV.
Yeah, that is funny.
It's pretty dirty. You've also got some unicorn synergies going on there. Not sure if that's going to matter, but I mean, hey, tribal, I guess. We have Raven.
We do have Raven.
What else do we have? I think we have Raven, and we have Dark Magic Surge.
There's a certain white unicorn who has been teetering on the edge.
Which one is this?
Trenderhoof?
Ah, Trenderhoof. He's still writing that line. Ooh. Ooh, Trenderhoof and this and TSUV is, that's kind of spicy.
Trender Proof.
That's kind of fun.
Any and all combos found on stream.
Are what? Property of no one.
Property of the stream.
No.
So yeah, definitely an interesting card. I am struggling to find an appropriate rating for this though, because I cannot think of a deck that already exists in the meta that just slots into nicely.
Yeah, this is going to be something new.
I mean, I think she's a 2/5. I
It's
think
about-
she's a very strong limited card. It would be a stretch to make her a constructed card, at least right now.
I agree. I feel comfortable with a 2/5. There is a little nagging voice in the back of my head that looks at cost reduction and just says, "You, one day." But that's a much quieter voice than it was with Vapor Trail. Vapor Trail practically screamed it.
Especially since she has a floor.
Right, exactly. Aura, Cheese, thoughts?
It's pink.
Nothing that I haven't said.
Number?
Oh, you want
What, we're doing card ratings now?
Yeah.
No, I haven't given a number for any of the previous stuff. I'm not about to start giving numbers for this.
We started with the last card.
I'm
Well-
gonna say
I mean,
You're a
to be
butt.
fair, we're totally going to give this number again when we.
I mean, yeah, we'll just see how far our numbers are off in like the month or so it takes for us to find a combo with this, right?
All right, fine. You want it? Fine. Here's what we're doing. I'm calling it. I'm calling it a 5. We're gonna find it.
We're gonna find it? Okay, there you go. Angel Wings is not next on the list. It's DJ Pony Feel the Beat.
And now Cheese gives it a 0.
I mean,
Cheese.
no, it doesn't hurt you.
I guess it's a 0.
I think it's
In the meantime, while we wait for Cheese, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 2/5 as well.
No,
For
no,
the same
no, hold on.
reasons.
Hold on.
Oh.
If you're gonna give it a 0, you have to give it a 0 with the Octavia card. Come on.
how do you give
A
it
harsh
a
judge?
0?
Yes, a harsh judge 0.
A
Hold up the
harsh
0.
Judge 0. Oh.
No, hold up the
right.
harsh judge holding up the 0.
Oh, there you
Exactly.
go.
Wait, was that in response to me or Cheese?
I don't
That's in
know.
response
Cheese.
to Cheese not giving it a rating because
Yes.
he vanished. He got
Mis-
sucked into a portal.
Mysteriously.
Myster-
Oh, yes.
Anyway,
Those are our only 2 spoilers.
Harsh Cheese.
We think. Let's search chat real quick.
I did.
Okay.
No,
It's
I
our
was
only two.
actually talking. The problem was that Mumble was being stupid.
Ah,
Oh.
well, that would explain why we couldn't hear you. So go ahead, say everything you were saying all over again.
No. I'm gonna give it a 20.
A 20.
You're gonna break it 4 times?
Yeah, it's gonna be in 4 separate.
Four-
I don't actually know. I think that it's interesting, and that the 2/5 seems low. Like, yeah, it doesn't fit into anything right now, but I definitely think that there's some stuff you can do with this.
There's probably something that wants to run this, but it's not. It's difficult.
I mean, sure, with current decks, it's a 2, but I don't like.
Well, if 2 of them are in play, then Ursa Vanquisher can be free.
No.
To a minimum
Vanquisher
of
still
1.
has
Oh,
the
to a minimum of
floor.
1. Yeah. There's the ceiling. I mean, floor.
RTFC.
Yeah,
This is why it says to a minimum of 1, because you can't have nice things.
Well, maybe
Now-
if you had 3 of them in play, right? Then you can have it for
Can't.
free.
Have nice things.
Now, there is something that we do need to bring up here, and that is the fact that in regard to the TSUV interaction, once the friends are home, you can't move them again. TSUV specifically must move opposing characters home. So you can basically get Twilight for 1 AT for every subsequent use up until all your opponent's friends are at home.
Mm-hmm.
Which could be fun against a Thorax deck. Ba-ba, ba-ba, ba-ba. Go home.
Except
go home,
Thorax
go home.
doesn't care, because he'll still be like, all right, whatever. I got 15 pythons at home. I'm still like 18 power. Deal with it.
We did. We pushed him home.
yeah, but then he moves back up, and then you're sad.
Well, I mean, it's costing you 1 AT to move 2 characters back. You're not that sad.
Anyway, somewhere in the middle tier with this card, I think is reasonable.
So yeah. Though speaking of cost reductions, we do have a few infinite movement combos that will let you reduce even Starlight Glimmer down to 1.
Yes, that is true.
Oh,
Well,
you have to keep
1
in mind
plus
that
the cost of the combo. However you
the
did that.
initiating the infinite movement, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And is that
AJ
fancy
Flutters
pants?
doesn't help in that situation at all, Godot. AJ Flutters stops sending. Moving
Yep.
is not sending.
And then all their friends are at home anyway. And then
Yeah.
you let them keep their HA and Fluttershy, and you kind of laugh. Or heck, you can make it even more cruel, and you can play Cutie Pox Scare, which causes players to move all their characters home from problems.
Well, a problem.
If you play 2 of them. Whatever, it's
Sure.
6 AT.
It's 5 AT.
What, for
I
Cutie
mean,
Pox
sorry,
Scare?
4 AT. 4 AT.
For
yeah.
Cutie Pox Scare?
Yeah, 3 for the first one, 1 for the second one. Unless you're only hitting
Tell
1
me-
or 0
Tell me,
things.
how are you getting 1 for a second one when DJ Pony only reduces the cost of friends?
Oh, you're
Dun
right.
dun dun.
Okay, let me think about this.
Okay, while you think about that, I think maybe we should
Wrap
move
it
on
up.
and get things wrapped up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope we get some more exciting spoilers that we can talk about in a future week, though.
Any future week?
I mean, in the immediate future. Immediate future. That will about wrap up our discussion on the spoilers and the submitted deck list for today. We would like to give a big shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon, not just Cursed Chords and Sonnet Scroll, but thank you very much to those two.
Yeah.
Thank you for your regular support. And if you, viewers in chat, are not currently a patron for Commentary as Magic and you do enjoy what we do, please do consider donating, because doing so will give you awesome rewards, like the ability to vote on polls to determine what future videos we produce.
Or submit deck lists.
Yep. Submit deck lists to be reviewed live, just like we did now, or challenge Sim or other patrons to live duels. If you have comments or questions that you would like to send our way, or if you're just interested in hearing about what we're working on for the future, or if you want to say hi, there are lots of ways that you can stay in contact. We do have Patreon, as mentioned previously, but we also have a Facebook page at facebook.com/commentaryasmagic. We're on Twitter at CIM_CCG. You can email us at commentaryismagicteam@gmail.com. And patrons at or above the $5 per month level do get access to our Slack channel where you can chat with us live any day, anytime. Geez, what time did you wake up today?
At like 3:30 p.m.
And I'm
Wake
normally up at
up.
6:30 in the morning.
You're implying that I woke up today.
I am implying that you woke up today. Seriously, try us. You'll be able to poke someone just about any time. If you would
Except
like
con time.
except con time. If you are looking to watch any of our previous videos, including some awesome tournament recordings, you can, of course, find them on our YouTube channel, which is also linked in the sidebar. And please make sure to subscribe if you have not already, so that we can get our channel URL corrected. But with that said, I would like to thank each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. And we will be back next week to talk a bit about the power of consistency.
Some of us will be back next week.
Some of us will be back next week. I am, as always, Grandpa's.
I'm Emperor Bugle.
Big cheese.
Aracat and
Living Silver.
We will see you all in a week.
Some of us.
some of us.
Bye.